Hi everyone, welcome to another super story. Do you remember last week we were hearing about the four friends, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego? Do you remember what had happened at the end of the last story? Daniel interpreted the king's dream. He told the king what his dream meant, and the king put him in charge of a whole city. Daniel wanted his friends Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego to help him, and the king said yes. Well, this is what happened next. King Nebuchadnezzar was thinking to himself one day. Thinking, and then he had an idea. I know what I'll do, said King Nebuchadnezzar. I will build a statue. I will build a gold statue. I will build a gold statue that is 90 feet tall. That is 30 metres. That is a lot bigger than any of our houses. A lot bigger. And then, said the king, when I have built my statue, it is going to be the biggest, the goldest and the most amazing statue in all of the land. So everyone got to work building King Nebuchadnezzar's statue. I didn't know how long it took, but I expect it took a really long time. Well, when it was done, King Nebuchadnezzar said, gather everyone, all of the rulers, all of the people in charge of stuff, get them to come here and look at my gold statue. Look at how big and gold and amazing it is. So everyone came and looked and they said, oh yes, king, it is very big and gold and amazing. You don't disagree with a king like that because he might chop your head off. And then King Nebuchadnezzar said, I know what we'll do. Everyone is going to play their musical instruments, all their trumpets and things like that. And when they play their musical instruments, everybody here must bow down on their knees and worship my big gold amazing statue. Because, of course, it is so big and gold and amazing. So off went the trumpet and off went the other musical instruments and everyone got on their knees and bowed down to the big gold amazing statue and said how big and gold and amazing it was, except for three people at the back. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego did not bow down. They knew that God had said the only person you should worship is God. He's bigger than any statue and he's much more amazing than any statue, even a great big giant gold one. And he can really do things. A statue can't. A statue can't save anybody, but God can. He can rescue people and defend people and all sorts of things like that. So the only person you should say is amazing and worthy of all those things is God. So when all of the trumpets and all the musical instruments played, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego stayed firmly on their feet. Now, some of the other rulers were looking around and they spotted this. I don't think the king spotted it because I think the king was quite busy looking at his big gold amazing statue and thinking about how big and gold and amazing it was. But some of the others spotted and they started to make a plot. You see, they didn't like Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego very much. They'd come from another country and they'd taken up some very important positions. The other rulers didn't think that was a very good thing. They didn't think that should be allowed. So they started to make a plot. A plot is like making a bad plan. A bad plan usually to hurt someone or do something to somebody. So they gathered together in a little huddle and they started having a whisper to each other. And they thought of some ideas and they thought of some other ideas. And in the end, they came up with their best idea. And off they went to tell the king. Now, they were clever. They didn't go and say, King, we think you should kill Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. No, because the king liked Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. He thought they would catch the king out. So they said, King, your Royal Highness, sir. And the king said, yes. They said, we think your statue is so big and gold and amazing that everyone should worship it. King Nebuchadnezzar said, oh yes, yes, I think so too. Well, said the plotters, what about if somebody doesn't? You should make a royal decree that anyone who doesn't bow down and worship your big gold amazing statue gets thrown into a fiery furnace so they burn up and die. Oh, said King Nebuchadnezzar, that sounds like a good idea. So he wrote it down and made it into a law. And then everyone gathered together again, and the trumpets blew and the other musical instruments played, and everybody bowed down to the statue, apart from Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. They knew they shouldn't. They were standing up for God. Well, the plotters said, Look, your kingship, your royal highness, sir, look over there, they're not bowing down. They're not, said the king. But he liked Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, so he thought he'd give them another chance, and he went to talk to them. He said, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, you must bow down to my statue. If you don't, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace, and there you will burn up and die. You don't want that, do you? Well, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego looked at each other, and I don't expect they did want to be thrown into the fiery furnace to burn up and die. But they knew what was important. King Nebuchadnezzar, they said, the only God we will worship is our God. The king said, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, you will be thrown into the furnace. Then who's going to save you from my power? Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego looked at each other. They said, our God can save us. And even if he doesn't save us, we will not bow down to your statue. That is wrong. We will only worship our God. Well, the king's face started to change. It started looking crosser and crosser until it was angry and then furious. Heat that furnace up, said the king, 7 times hotter than usual. Tie them up and throw them in. Well, the guards did what the king said. No one was going to argue with him when he was looking that cross. They tied up Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. They heated the furnace up. They opened the door and threw them in, and the furnace was so hot that the soldiers who threw them in died from the heat. They got burnt up. The king felt quite pleased once the door had shut. He was in charge again. He was more powerful than anyone else. More powerful than any silly little god, he thought to himself. And he had a look over at the furnace and then he had a look at one of his guards and he said, Didn't we throw 3 people in? And the guard said, Yes, your kingship, sir, we threw 3 people in. And the king said, But there are 4 in there. And the guard went and had a look, and then he checked his piece of paper and he ticked off their names, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, 3 people. And he looked through the door again, 4 people. Oh, he said. And the king said, And didn't we tie them up? And the guard said, Oh, yes, sir, your kingship, sir. Yes, we did tie them up. And the king said, But they're walking around. There's 4 people walking around in that furnace. One of them doesn't look like the others. One of them, it looks like a son of a god. Let them out, said the king. He couldn't believe what was happening. The guards opened the door and out came Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. I'm not sure what happened to the 4th person, but Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego stepped out and everyone gathered round to look. They didn't have any burns on them. They were fine. Completely fine. The king was amazed. Your God has saved you, he said. My statue couldn't do that. And then the king said, anyone who disagrees with Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, well, they will be gone. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, I'm going to give you even more important roles. Your God is amazing. You might be wondering where Daniel was in our story. I was wondering this too. Well, we found out a supernova yesterday. We weren't sure, so we had to go and have a look. But it turns out that Daniel was in a different part of the country. We think this only happened in one area, and we think that Daniel was in charge of a different area. But I expect once he heard what had happened to his friends, he was amazed. He must have been so pleased with what God had done. That's the end of our story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. You can join us for some Saturday craft on Saturday, and Family Sunday will be on Sunday. See you then. Bye.